of the committee members who are here, but also to acknowledge the clerk to the Houses of Parliament, who is sitting to my right, the Deputy Clerk, Ms. Lowe, who is here with us, and with us is the committee coordinator, Ms. Tracy Cohen. We also have with us Miss Anne-Marie Brown and Miss Malcolm. Our Hansard writers are behind us. Our orderlies are here with us. And of course, we couldn't do this without the IT team led by Mr. Merrick Brown. I also want to welcome and thank the press for joining us this morning. And indeed, it is important and it is good to have members of the press here with us, because today in this Parliament, our deliberations in the committee will mark a milestone and a paradigm shift in governance as we have known it for these past years. It does mark a new era in the life of our politics. And what it really represents is the mantra of government that comes to the service of our people. And I want to say, and I'm sure you'll all agree with me, that this is indeed a very bold move on the part of any administration at all. Because what indeed, in tabling the green paper and the white paper, which was done by the Honorable Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, on the 20th of June, he brought to table the green paper, which relates to job descriptions for parliamentarians, which are going to be open to our discussions, and of course the conduct of our parliamentarians. And he also tabled a white paper relating to ministers, which is really settled government policy. And what he has asked us to do represents a process. And I want to ensure the public, Jamaica at large, that this committee is prepared to engage in a process, recognizing, as the old saying says, Rome was not built in a day. So it's going to be a process, nothing that we can just jump in and do, because our political and our cultural landscape just cannot be changed in a day. It is a process. I want to repeat it, and I keep the word process is so important so that the public doesn't think that we can come, sit down, write, deliberate, and come to conclusions. It is a process, and what the Prime Minister's asked this committee to do is to manage the process, so that at the end of it, the country will have a clear sense of what is required of us as parliamentarians and ministers in government. So, as a committee, we are embarking on change management. We are going to manage the process of the change. And so we have to look at the structure of the task at hand. We have to look at how it's done in other countries across the world. And of course, most importantly, I feel we will consult with civil society or ordinary Jamaican people who we are all elected to serve. To putting together a job description for parliamentarians is not like ABC when you just get up and decide this is what you do and so on. It is, and it's certainly not similar to putting together a job description for a private company, because a job description for anybody elected to serve has constitutional underpinning. And for me, the Constitution of Jamaica gives every single citizen in this country his or her right to offer themselves to represent the people of Jamaica. And so it is important when we are discussing and managing the process of a job description for parliamentarians, is that we are mindful of a number of factors in our culture. We have to be mindful of our colonial past, where you had people who were oppressed, people who were deprived of educational opportunities, deprived of economic well-being. But despite all of that, there are people who have struggled and been sensitive and very mindful of the needs of their Jamaican people. And therefore, as a committee, at the end of the day, it is my hope, and I intend to do all I can as I chair this committee, to make sure that whatever we do, however we deliberate on everything, we do not end up creating a pie-in-the-sky job description that would bar a large section of our population from offering themselves for service. Because as I said, we have history and we have culture, and many people have not achieved the, all that younger generation have been able to achieve, but they have been mindful and they have offered themselves for service, and they have served the Jamaican people well. I want to say also that the government, led by the Most Honorable Andrew Michael Holness, has, in mandating and setting this committee in motion, has taken a great leap, which I consider first. And I think that the Prime Minister must take credit this morning for this inaugural meeting of a bipartisan committee to help with the aid of the Jamaican people, the input from all walks of society, to create a job description on which our population can rely. And in fact, you know, in doing so, I make bold to say that the Prime Minister is really putting his political capital on the line, because make no mistake, there are still persons in our society who believe that the status quo should remain the way it is. So basically, members, we are here to look at a job description, create something to obtain from our civil society, to hear from our people what it is that they would like to do, and also to create and establish a code of conduct that will show that we are serious about the job of representation. We are serious about doing so respectful of the views of our colleagues, and we are going to conduct ourselves in a manner that is acceptable and at a high standard. Having said all of that, really, it now is for us all as members of the committee to, you can open with your own views as to how we should adopt, and we can, for this inaugural meeting, set certain parameters by which we will be guided. And starting with that, to look at a timeline for deliberations, and most importantly, a schedule of the meetings. I hastened as chairman to call this because I think it is important. The Prime Minister has urged us to do it. Jamaica is waiting on us, and therefore the committee clerk has kindly prepared a schedule of the openings, and I think that we should now look at the times that are open to us and, first of all, grab the dates that we need to deliberate and to meet so that we can move ahead with this task that has been given to us. And I'm going to close my mouth and allow members of the committee to join and share with us.
Madam Chair, certainly I'd like to make some comment on the point you made, but maybe it would be prudent if we could determine the quorum for the committee, and then we can then comment on this.
Says in any joint select committee of this nature, 3 persons would be a quorum. Unless we decide otherwise.
That 3 would include the chair?
Beg your pardon?
Would that 3 include the chair?
Yes, because I looked at it. Yes, I think so. Unless in some circumstances, but remember this is for us to decide. So if as members you feel otherwise, we can always discuss it and see what is the best way that we can move forward to make this functional.
I wish to propose that the quorum be the chair, well, at least 4 members rather than 3, because that would mean the chair and 2 other persons, and it doesn't strike me as sufficient to take a decision on behalf of the committee. I'd add 1 more to that. That would be my recommendation. No, to include 4 members, and then if the chair is one of those, that's fine. But if the chair is not present and there are 4 members present, then we can elect from among ourselves a chair.
I have no difficulty with that, Chair.
No, I support what is being proposed.
Sorry, there are circumstances where I might be out of country on parliamentary business, and I would like, because we are all capable in here, that our meetings continue, notwithstanding my absence, because I think it's important that we get ahead with what we have to do. So if there are no objections, we will use a suggestion of members for 4 persons being the quorum, and that in the absence of myself as chairman, somebody be chosen so at the meetings, when they are set, go ahead, notwithstanding. Member Lee has joined us. Welcome, Member Lee. Nice to have you. Where's Miss Alcott? Oh, because she's not in front of me. She's a vital part of everything we do here in Parliament. So welcome to Tashana, Miss Alcott. Okay, having done that, I want to, you have before you the openings for committee meetings. And the clerk, the committee clerk has right now, all the Tuesday mornings are open. I would like to suggest that we grab hold of a Tuesday morning, if that is agreeable.
That's not what this is. I think the next 2 Tuesdays are taken. The
Beg your
12th.
pardon?
No, based on the schedule, let's see here, I think criminal justice is next week, and
Thank you.
that's you.
Yeah, from the 26th, and Member Robinson. Look at the 26th, from the 26th.
Chair, can I ask a copy
Sure.
of the schedule, because what I have before me is December 2023. So there seems to...
Can Mr. Brown be given? I'm sorry about that, Mr. Brown. You're getting one.
That's fine.
Please let Mr. Brown have it. And while we're doing this, members, can we have an idea of how long you think, what's the approximate period that you think, because that will help us in setting the schedule you think we need in order to, prepare a report that will go.
Chair, I think the first thing, I know we're going to invite the public to pronounce on it, so we should probably look at a time frame in terms of putting out an advertisement, and whether you're giving people a month or so to consider what you have as a green paper, and then to come back to us with their comments.
Right, but what I'm trying to guide our minds towards is that I would like, and I think it is, Jamaicans are looking for it, and the Prime Minister has mandated us. I would like for us to have a report ready before the parliamentary year closes. When does the parliamentary year? Mid-February. It's about mid-February. I mean, we can put together what we have so that at least Jamaica recognizes that this is something serious. We've reached a point we can prepare and say there are more submissions we need to take. But at this point, I think it is mindful that we should at least have a report before the parliamentary year.
Chair, I'm for expedition in doing the work of this committee and making the report. But just before we proceed further, maybe a response to your opening comments and some concerns which would then feed into the agenda, the date setting that has to come. So if that's okay, I'd certainly just like to...
Sure.
The minutes from the Senate speaks to the committee looking at examining Ministry Paper 69 of 2023 entitled Job Description of Ministers of Government. 2, Green Paper number 3 of 2023 dated 20th of June 2023 entitled Job Description for Members of Parliament of Jamaica.
Yes.
And 3, Conduct for Parliamentarians. I wish to note, Madam Chair, that of the 84 parliamentarians, fully 25% are not captured in any of these documents. I speak of those who sit on a Friday.
No, man. Yeah.
I'm saying...
Some of the ministers.
Oh,
So
you're
I'm saying-
correct. Yes,
Yes,
because
and-
they capture the ministers, but
But
members
it doesn't
of the
capture
Senate.
the members of the Senate. And that's 25% of the 84 parliamentarians. So I hope we could find a way to incorporate the work of the senators. And they usually present at these meetings, Madam Speaker.
I know, and
So
people
we need
work
to
hard and
find a way to incorporate the work of the senators in what we ask the public to buy into as the job descriptions of the senators, so that the document speaks to ministers of government, the code of conduct speaks to, as is here, to ministers, and only the green paper speaks to members of parliament, and that is to 63 as against the 84. So I'm suggesting we find a way to incorporate the 84 parliamentarians in the work we're doing, and so an amendment may be necessary to the terms of reference to look at the work of the senators. And to that, I'd like to add, Madam Chair, that the committee, as we proceed, seek to inquire whether there are any other Commonwealth country with job descriptions guiding their parliamentarians, and if we could seek and obtain copies of any such job description.
We have that on the agenda to get.
Good,
that.
thank you.
But,
so we're at one. And the final thing I want to say, with your permission, is I'm also asking if research can be done in the number and percentage of parliamentarians submitting private members' bills, private members' motions, and questions to ministers over the last 5 or 10 years. That would be helpful to see what our parliamentarians do and to see whether or not that should be part of the term. So if we got that, if we are able to get that information, it will be useful. Those are the comments I want to.
Thank you very much. That's valid recommendation. Can I hear from the members? I think it's very important what the member said about bringing in all of us, the 80 plus of us, to include our senators. So it can be included in an interim report, but I think what the member is saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is as we go along at this point, we do include the senators from day one.
That's my position.
Right. And so say all of us, members, any dissenting voice with that?
You know, it is not often, Chair, that some of us agree with Senator Brown, especially on a Friday.
Tuesday.
But today is Tuesday.
Yes.
I want to share the sentiments, and I look back at the terms of reference, and I agree that, you know, the senators were not included, but I don't think it was intentionally done. I agree with your sentiments, Chair, that this is a very bold move. And we hope and anticipate that we can work through this process, as you have indicated. When I look back on the extract of the minutes, I think for what in my mind is going to be the most challenging is to recommend and plan under 3, the plan of action for the implementation of standards on performance and accountability. Because I believe, in my mind, that is the greatest area of emphasis that is being invited by the public in terms of parliamentarians. And I think it's an area that we have to take some guidance on, because it's not an easy task for parliamentarians to determine, to evaluate their own performance. And that is one of the areas that is not contained in the template that has been presented. We have templates that speaks to the code of conduct and job descriptions. So it's not contained in there for us to have any guidance on. Now, I know the Ministry of Finance, through its work, would have been developing performance assessment tools. And maybe we should invite the ministry so to do in assisting us with this process, in terms of identifying what could be a possible chart, a course of action in defining that. You made mention, Chair, of inviting other interested stakeholders, and that's very, very important, right, because us as parliamentarians must not take on the task of doing this alone, notwithstanding the fact that many companies and entities would be developing their own internal code of conduct and job descriptions. But we are inviting stakeholders to participate in that. And I want to suggest that there are some groups that can be targeted, that we can specifically invite. And I speak of the Caribbean Institute of Human Resource Management, that is registered here in Jamaica. You have the Human Resource Management Association of Jamaica, that is HERMAJ. You have the Jamaica Employers Federation. And it would be remiss of me not to speak of the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions, notwithstanding the fact that we are represented here, but we would also invite the Confederation of Trade Union. And there's an entity that I thought about. I'm hoping they'd be inclined so to do, and that's the Jamaica Customer Service Associations, that measures both internal and external service delivery. Jamaica, that's the grouping that measures, the portal that measures accountability. Yes. Those are areas, Chair, that I believe strongly. And any other grouping, yes, that wishes to participate. But those are specific areas that comes to my mind that I believe we should target and encourage to participate and to assist us in this particular process. But yes, I agree with the fact that this is a very bold move, and I believe it is setting a strategic target that encompasses how parliamentarians should work, how parliamentarians should demonstrate and deliver, and how parliamentarians should provide service and to be evaluated against such service. So I think and I believe also that whilst we can set timelines, I'm of the view that we can complete this exercise once we start identifying those dates. So to do, we can do it before the end of the parliamentary year.
Thank you very much. You have sort of gone ahead of us because I wanted us to grab the dates that are available and agree on them. I want to pause for a moment to welcome Mrs. Holness. Nice to have you with us, Mrs. Holness. And I agree with all that you have said. But remember now that as members of Parliament, we are elected by the people and we are accountable to the people. And in my opening remarks, you know, I hasten to say that all of this has constitutional underpinning, but we have to remember our culture. We have to go back. We need to remember the ordinary man out in the street, not just the organizations, because we are elected by them. And in our culture, we have to take note of our colonial past. We have to be mindful of the fact that in the past there were so many people who were deprived of educational opportunities. They were deprived of economic opportunities. And yet, hold on, and yet members, some of those very people who are not, for want of a better word, have not achieved the highest standards of education, have been able, through their struggles, to remain sensitive to the needs of our people. And they have, in fact, offered themselves and done, many of them, a sterling job at serving this country. So while I want to encourage and have a lot of the groups mentioned coming, I want us to understand that when we go to the polls, when every person goes to the polls, it is the Jamaican man and woman from all walks of life that are going to, in fact, mark us and say whether or not we have done our job well. And we must not, because always we have to create a balance. And what is expected and required in a private company, in organizations that we have now, is not always what it is that the people who come out for us, who elect us, want. And against all of that background, you know, let us look and be mindful that the percentage of our population that has over these past years gone out to vote becomes less and less. And when you look at the persons who have come out to support our political parties, a lot of them come from the grassroots. And therefore, when we think of all these societies, I want us as a committee not to forget our people, the grassroots Jamaicans, who come out whether the rain or the sun shining or rain falling, and they elect us. So included in all of this, I would like for us to find a way, set up a structure in this committee where we can hear from the ordinary person on the street what it is they want us. And so, as I said, be careful that we do not create for ourselves and our representatives in the future a pie in the sky thing that does not relate to the society that we live in. It's very easy in this sort of arena to intellectualize and put guidelines and principles on things without taking note of our people, how they feel, how they act, and what they expect of us. So I agree with everything, and I welcome, but I'm going to ask us before we go there to let us skip back, since we have some Tuesdays available, and see if we can grab the Tuesday mornings that's available to us. And we were saying, members, that in my absence, if I'm not here for reasons beyond my control, we've agreed that a member of this committee will chair it so that we will get ahead with the business that we have been tasked by the Prime Minister to have done.
Madam Chair, just before you proceed, a couple of comments. I think it's good that the job description for members of Parliament has been placed before us, that is the Green Paper. It augurs well for principles of transparency and accountability that society aspires for us, and indeed we as members of the Parliament, we aspire to. I think it's a good development that it has been tabled, and it certainly places us here in Jamaica ahead of some more established democratic countries in the world. I wish to also support the view that it is quite possible and in order for us to be in a position to complete a report before the end of the parliamentary year. And I think Member Robinson's suggestion of, 4 weeks? for submissions for perhaps the 6 weeks is also in order. I hear the view of Senator Brown that perhaps the terms could be amended to contemplate the function of us in the upper house of the parliament, that is the 21 senators. And I don't oppose it at all in terms of the substance of it or the principle, but I think there's a context to which this green paper focuses on the members of parliament that should be highlighted. And that context is the role and the function of members of the upper house is pretty much clearly defined in the Constitution of Jamaica as a review chamber. And I'd endeavor to say that that has not really been departed from during the conduct of the business of the Senate. You know, for as long as Jamaica has gained independence since 1962. But the context in which this document focuses on the job description for members of parliament is that the de facto function of an MP has really transformed from what was contemplated when the framers of the Constitution formed that document, which indeed is the supreme law of the land. And really the de facto function of an MP has morphed into one where the MPs are contemplated as benefactors. Yes, and therefore it is very important that a green paper be tabled to define and cause us to contemplate what exactly do we want from a member of parliament. So again, I don't oppose the suggestion that the terms be amended to include a clear definition of the function of lawmakers in the upper house. But I think there's an important context, which I just alluded to, why this document focuses on what is expected of, or what should be expected of, members in the lower house. And finally, I note that a document is before us, a ministry paper regarding the conduct of ministers, and a code of conduct, as it were, which has been a topical issue in the public domain. And it is worthy of highlighting that that code of conduct has been around since 2002, to which ministers are obliged to abide by. So it is good that that document is again before us, but I think it must be highlighted that it has been around for a long time. And I speak about the code of conduct for ministers, which was tabled before the Parliament by the erstwhile Prime Minister in 2002. Those are my preliminary comments.
Thank you very much. In terms of the code of conduct, that was not really given to us for discussion. It was really put there for, you know, to give context to what we're doing. And I agree with you, because as MPs, we are elected by the people, while the senators are appointed by the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition. But I also understand where member from the Brown from the Senate is saying, because at the end of the day, you're a review chamber, but we want everything at the end to be presented. And in the words of the Prime Minister, he said, so that the country can have a clear sense of what is expected from us as a whole. So maybe,
Chair.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Just to give some preliminary remarks as we go into setting the framework for moving forward and looking at our dates. Firstly, I want to join with you, Chair, and our Speaker. I definitely think this is the sort of game-changing and transformational work that we have before us as a committee, and I think the government has taken a significant step in the right direction, led by our Prime Minister, to ensure that we have at least a framework to start the discussions on the job descriptions for members of Parliament. And clearly, I think that will help all of us to sort of, whether we manage expectations, to help people coming into the profession in relation to responsibilities, to especially develop a sort of framework for assessing performance. I think that may be maybe the most challenging part, but it will take tremendous work from all of us. So I agree with you, Chair, that this is transformational by nature. I hear Member Brown, but I'm a little bit more minded with the viewpoint that Member Fitzhenley put forward. And I'm a little worried, Chair, what I don't want us to do. I believe that, as you have said, I would love us to finish this work by the end of the parliamentary year. And I think if we focus our energies on the job descriptions for the MPs and try to determine, based on the TOR that we've been given, to have a report ready for that, I think that should be our primary focus. I take the point, and I think Senator Brown is right, that there may be some work that is needed in refining the role of a senator. But I would want us, it may become easier to do that when we've finished this work, right? And I do believe, in terms of the role that the public plays in choosing their members of parliament, that this work is the one that has to be prioritized and that we should treat with first. I agree with Senator Brown in relation to trying to see what other parliaments have done. And I think it's very important that we never lose sight of the fact that there are parliaments that have put in frameworks to assess performance. And I think it really is for the parliament itself to establish a framework that the people are okay with, agree with, and not leave it up to other parties. And I think that is very, very important. And you made a strong point. Sometimes we lose the point that there is an overarching accountability framework that is set by the people who ultimately decide our faith, right? What we are looking at is, one, having a clear framework that guides us throughout that term of performance, and also looking at what happens along that journey until you go back to the people, right? So I think it's very, very important that the parliament itself develops this framework and that we look at what has happened in other parliaments. And clearly the UK Parliament has done some work in that regard. I join with Member Robertson. I believe we have to have a public call. And I think 4 weeks is a good time period to give people the opportunity to comment. You know, I wonder, Chair, and I'll put it out there, whether we should find some time to have public engagements.
I definitely want to
on the job descriptions. You know, some years ago, even before I came into political office, I was a part of a process where a joint select committee at the time decided to have town hall meetings and engage the public directly to hear from them. You know, I think it's very important that we get the public's view on what they believe the role of an MP should be, ought to be, because ultimately they judge, they decide. So they really should play a part in telling us what they're looking for. Whether it is that, for example, MPs need more autonomy in relation to resources or less autonomy in relation to resources. That's always a discussion that's had at a very theoretical level, right? But what are the people on the ground saying? What role should the MP play in the decision-making process regarding infrastructure projects, things of that nature? I think we have to hear from the people. So I would suggest, Chair, that definitely during this part of the year that we probably take some time and see if we could organize some town halls and go to the people. Finally, there have been some reports that over the history of our parliament that touch on concern various elements. They've looked at different angles, maybe salary, but they've spoken about conduct, they've spoken about the roles, and I think one of the things that we would need is probably the secretariat of the committee to look at some of those reports, and if we could get maybe a summary document where it touches on concerns what we're looking at, right? So that we have that as a part of our guiding documents in looking at this. So, Chair, I look forward to participating in what I see as significantly transformational work, and I'm very happy that the Prime Minister has led us down this path, and I hope that by next year, February, we have a comprehensive report that really takes into account the voice of the people on this.
I thank you. I think we're all, somehow all the voices that we've heard this morning are saying the same thing, but in different ways. The one thing that has stuck out at me first is whether or not our first order of business should be our town hall meetings while we wait for the reports from the more organized groups, because as the member has highlighted what I said, we are elected by the people on the ground. So we need to hear, and they don't always, I said we have to look at our culture. They are not always inclined to place in a report how they feel, but they will tell us. And I think that is what is so important to us. So probably we could look at an agenda where we could send out, as Member Robinson said, to get the views of the various agencies, and at the same time set an agenda to start our town hall meetings. And when I say town hall, because this is so important to us as members of Parliament, we don't have to go to a town hall. We can use like an area meeting, and each of us take people from our own constituencies and meet, so that at the end of the day, we don't just do town hall here and some people get left out. We look at a group thing, and as members of Parliament, we use the funds at our disposal to help to transport a group from our constituencies to such a meeting, so that you get the voices of everybody involved. Well,
or to come in to wait a bit, Chair.
You look forward to coming
to wait a bit, yeah.
Oh, we look forward to having you, you know. We look forward to having you. We look forward to having you. So, members, can we turn the page and go back and see if we can grab some dates now where we are looking to do that, because we have to hold on to the dates that are available. The Tuesdays are available for us, Tuesday morning starting the 26th of this month. Prior to that, the next 3 Tuesdays are taken. But we have all the other Tuesdays, and while we're looking at the Tuesday mornings, how can we look at dates for these meetings, which probably we could do on a weekend?
Speaker,
yes, ma'am.
through you, Chair. Since we would like to be very efficient in executing this task, and Tuesdays are booked all the way from the 12th, when Parliament commences, down to the 26th, and individual groups would require some time to put together their submissions. It would be good to have the request for those submissions made now, so that by the time we get to Tuesday, October 3rd, 10th, 17th, 24th, and 31st, which are available, we are able to lock in, and we are now coming to meetings having garnered some amount of information from the public and having given adequate time to various interest groups to prepare their written submissions.
Thank you very much. So, Ms. Cohen, we'll send out the requests to the groups so for them to be ready for 4 weeks? 4 weeks. And while we wait on that, can we get some assistance in scheduling some meetings with the ordinary person on the ground? The everyday man and woman that's in the constituency, that elect you and have expectations, so that when you have the report, the various papers from the organizations, we have to balance it to see how it ties in with the people who actually elect us, because a lot of the people who prepare these reports don't even come out, some of them, many of them, on an election day, and we have to be mindful. Well, it's obvious because the percentage of people who vote keeps going down, and as members of parliament, when you go in your constituent election day, you tell me who it is you see standing in the rain or standing for hours to put their X where they want to put their X. So I thank you, Member Holness. We're going to do that, do the request right away. I want the input of everybody now, how we
just
approach.
a point of clarification, Chair.
Yes.
I don't think you intend to say it,
yes.
but it could be interpreted that way, that those who do not vote aren't citizens of the country and therefore entitled, let me finish please, and therefore entitled to participate in this process. I don't think that's what you intended.
No, I certainly didn't.
And certainly people could draw that conclusion from how it came across. Yeah. So I'm happy that you are saying that's not what you intended. That all citizens of Jamaica would be allowed to participate in this committee if they so desire.
Yeah.
That's what I'm understanding to be saying.
Thank you very much, Member, because it's very easy to misinterpret what any politician says, and I certainly didn't mean that. What I want to emphasize is while we include everyone, we place emphasis and remember the people who go out. That's all I'm saying. We don't want to just lend ourselves to the groups, but we want the person who can't write and put a paper or have the time or the wherewithal to come to be included. I certainly, and I thank you, Member. Should we put the ads for these papers to the public in general in the Gleaner? How do you propose? Do a general ad in the Gleaner to the public at large? Let me hear your vote, the Gleaner and the Observer.
Plus social media, and just ensure that the draft documents are
approved here.
Yeah, no, they are put on the parliamentary website so that the persons who are doing the review can look at the documents.
Right.
But
so
both newspapers plus social media.
Social media. Yeah. And that all the documents are put on the parliamentary website.
I was wondering, Madam Chair, whether we should contemplate.
So it means, one second, it means therefore, Member Robinson, we are not going to limit the information we receive from the groups that have been named. We are going to the public at large, right? Very well. If they so feel, they put their thing in. Everybody has a chance to put something in. Sorry, Member.
There is a cohort of Jamaicans who are not on social media and perhaps aren't fond of reading the newspapers. So therefore wondered whether we should engage as well in the advertisement, another section of the electronic media that is perhaps radio and TV as well.
Yes, thank you very much, yes. We are a very visual society, yes. Yes. What else? Who is that to do it? Is that Ricky? So we're, all right, we're agreed on that. Can we focus on what we're doing about meeting with people? I don't even want to say town hall, group meetings all over the island. You know, we can group together. 4.
I would suggest we do 4,
right,
so we can sectionalize as we usually do the country. And we have 63 members of parliament or senators who would be able to also encourage small groups to come out, and it would also be easier in terms of transportation, right, and to mobilize persons in smaller groups in that way.
Probably what we could try to do today, just so that we don't keep discussing, let's agree on a venue in 4 areas. Can we, members?
Chair,
yes.
Shouldn't we leave that to the, well, let me leave that, but I'm a little bit cagey about parliamentarians mobilizing people to come and speak about parliamentarian work. And it just, sorry? So you know, maybe the Minister of Constitutional Affairs could tell us about her experience with those town halls.
Well, let's hear, because we need to. I am a strong believer in going out there and hearing what people say. Yes.
Chair, I'm hoping once again not misconstrued, which is why the senators were included, and anybody who wants to, in fact, mobilize persons to get up and go out. Jamaicans, very often with all of the advertisements and everything going out in the media, you indicated very few participate in the process because they have just been distant from the process. Coming out of this particular process of identifying what the role and function of a member of parliament is, for me as a member of parliament who have had the experience of observing what my constituents believe is my role and function and what they vote for versus what this document says is my role and function, it is very important for me that when we have completed this exercise, that Jamaicans widely understand what is expected of us. And as such, I think it is critical that all and sundry get persons out to these town halls so that they can be a part of this process. I know managing the process will be coming from yourself, the Parliament, and the clerks. However, you are going to need the support of individuals to get this message out and get persons moving. Persons are not able to afford, particularly like my constituency, to afford to transport themselves to come to any town hall to participate in their own interests and future and the representation and quality of representation that they receive. So, Senator, not to make it one of us getting up and going out there to have people come out, but it is in our interest to have as many persons have their voices heard, because I agreed with Speaker wholeheartedly. The persons who rely on us the most are the persons who cannot take care of themselves the most. And as such, they must be considered in a big way, because they are usually the ones disenfranchised when we are making decisions at the very high intellectual level that leaves them out of the process.
Let me use another hat in referencing my statement. So today I'm a senator. I don't know when I'm going to be an MP, if I'm going to be an MP, but I'm always a trade unionist. And part of the role of a trade unionist in determining the needs of his members is to go to the members. And in this case, we are setting the stage of a job description. And when you establish a job description, you are determining the work that you need to do to carry out the service. At the end of the day, this is a service of the people. And this is the opportunity for us to go to the people and hear from the people what the people want us to do as part of the job in serving the people. And so, there are those that are not going to come into the parliament. And we are defining by advertising for those who are inclined to come to the parliament. But I share your view wholeheartedly in terms of going to some of the people and hearing from some of the people. And whether if it's 4 meetings that we're going to have, we can determine if it's east, west, north, or south to hold those meetings. But I believe in going to the people also. It would some sort of set the stage in terms of what this job description, what this role profile ought to look like before we start the engagement inside God knows.
That's right. Thank you very much. And with that, we have to decide when is it we're going to do it. And I would love to say, let us not consider Monday to Friday, but look at when, and look at the areas, because if we really want people to come out, all of us as representatives know a weekend lends itself to time where people are not working, not in the fields, not out at offices, and that is important also for us to set the timetable for these 4 meetings, which we would love to capture as many people. And Member Brown, as many people. You can get Parson to bring out the people, senators to bring out the people, and we can do it in an afternoon, a Sunday afternoon, a Saturday afternoon, whichever suits the area in which we are. And
I was about to say, Madam Chair, even as we contemplate the dates, regarding the very useful suggestion of a town hall, I think often the perception of parliamentarians is affected by how some of us speak about our colleagues, and a suspicion that is cast. I see nothing that should preclude a member of parliament from being part of the process of organization of attendees at the town hall. I say that as well within the context that, given that this would be sufficiently organized, publicized in terms of the arrangement for the town hall, I have no doubt that caretakers as well, and the captains of various sectors, including the church, will join in the mobilization process. And indeed, I think they should be invited to so do alongside the efforts of the Member of Parliament, and MPs are critical stakeholders in the process of mobilization. Indeed, there's a view that, apart from the church, the political directorate on both sides of the aisle are among the most efficient organizers of people. So in so doing, we'll get a variety of views, and all views will contend.
I think so. So when are we thinking of what areas and time?
All right. So, Chair, I just wanted to say that this is one of the issues that you would want parliamentarians to mobilize people to come to speak on. You know, and again, I join with Member Fitzhenley. I think sometimes we cast things in a certain light that, you know, truly does a disservice to the field of politics, right? It would be in the interest of Jamaica for parliamentarians to try and get people to come out to these events, because you're asking them to speak on what they want to see from the people who represent them, you know? Anyway, Chair, I think clearly we have to look at our main population centers. It's very important. So I think, you know, it may be easiest for the committee to start whether in Kingston or St. James, right? Largely because of those heavy population centers. I think the committee chair, again, the secretariat may have to just spend some time. But I would suggest that we see if we can get the first one done in another 2 weeks or so. You want sufficient time to do some advertisements, right? So while I don't know where it would work, but I would love, and I would put it out there, I would love if we could find locations that will also give our youth added impetus to come and participate, right? So, you know, in Kingston, you might look at somewhere like a Jamaica College. In Montego Bay, you might look at somewhere like or the community college in Montego Bay. Big venue, plus, you know, you would always be giving the young people an opportunity to be there. You know, school has started, and I'm really looking forward, I must be honest, to hear what the youth have to say on the concept of the job descriptions. So I also want to suggest, Chair, that I know that we have called the names of some organizations. There are a number of youth-led organizations or secondary schools council. I think it would be good to specifically reach out to them to ask for them to give some feedback on these job descriptions, right? We hope a number of them will transition from student leadership into political representation. So it would be good to hear from them. So I'll give those. I agree with Member Holness that maybe we should target 4. We probably also could formally write to the MPs encouraging them to have their own sort of localized consultation to get some feedback to give to the committee, those who deem it necessary, because it might be good for members of parliament to have a sit-down session to hear. Because again, the information about, remember, we have a working document. So saying to the people that this is what has been put forward is important, is as much as important as hearing from them, right? Because in what we've put forward, it may be changing some of the narratives about what to expect. So I think that is also important. So, Chair, I would say if we could get in one town hall at least before we return, and I would say if I think Mrs. Member Holness had put forward the 3rd as maybe our next meeting date. So if we could work back and probably maybe the weekend before, try to have our first town hall and then try to organize the other 3. Right? So I think it would, the committee now, Chair, would probably have to look to see which one would be easiest. But I would suggest whether we start at somewhere like Montego Bay, Comsey, or Jamaica College. And I know the friendly city of Montego Bay is always willing, and we have a member of parliament with us who I know could help in that regard. Thank you.
So, thank you very much. So we're looking at, are we agreed? Let's look at Montego Bay first. I don't want us to rule out our rural areas, you know.
Or Chiloni.
Listen, I heard the members say, you know, maybe we'll have something special in the country. He's looking forward to wait a bit. I don't want to leave out rural Jamaica because, you know, when you look at your results.
Member Green had suggested something, Chair, and I wanted to see clarity on it. In that, yes, the members of parliament, are you suggesting that we must have a meeting inviting views from members of parliament also in this case? Whilst there are representatives here, were you suggesting that we must meet with members of parliament specifically?
I really wasn't suggesting that per se, and I'm not saying it's a bad suggestion. But it's not that bad. But what I was suggesting more so was that it may be useful if we say to the MPs that they should seek to engage their constituents on this document. Yeah. So that if there are views from their constituents, then the MPs could submit that view to the committee. Right? Clearly, the MPs who are here, there's sort of a responsibility to kind of engage widely with our colleagues as well, to hear their viewpoints and to give it. But I think it may be useful also if we say to the MPs, engage your constituents, share the documents with them, right, and get feedback from them. Because again, this is one of the few things that will impact everybody who engages in the political process. So that was my suggestion, member.
So, what are we going to do? We are looking at what date now? Let's pick up date for the first one. Let's get down. Our next meeting is the 26th.
Are we meeting on the 26th, Chair? Because it will appear to me if you're asking for people to make submission in 4 weeks.
Okay. The 3rd, okay. So when do you want us to do the
third? The 3rd, sorry. Would the 3rd just be a little shy of the 4 weeks? Because
but we would have done a town hall meeting and so already, you know, so we
I
could,
see. So
yes.
you want to after one town hall you want to meet to assist it?
I do believe that we would have started to receive submissions by then, Chair. So by the 3rd, we would have had a town hall, and we must have some submissions by then that we can consider. So I don't think the 3rd
third
is...
or the 10th? Which one?
Third.
Okay. So now, what date are we looking at for the town hall meeting, and where are we starting?
We can start either in JC, which has been suggested by Member Green, or start at JC or in Montego Bay. The latest possible date would be Sunday the 30th or October 1st, Saturday the 30th or October 1st, which is Sunday, or the week prior, which would be the 23rd and 24th. The 24th
I would be
is
happy
not bad.
for that, because the clerk, myself, won't be here as of the 28th, so I'd love to be a part of at least the first
So the
one.
23rd, 24th weekend is good.
Right, so it would be what date we're looking at?
Saturday is the 23rd and Sunday.
Sunday the 24th? Right. And we're thinking JC? 24th. And we need a nice, for all our schools so for JC the 24th, we're covering what now? Kingston and where else? Kingston, let's see where we're covering. Because, hold on, we can, when we decide the area that we're covering, at least send a message to the schools in that area, because you might have principals who are interested in taking people from that, the churches and so. So what we have agreed the 24th, Sunday the 24th. Let us now agree the areas that we are covering. That would be Kingston, St. Andrew. What? How the counties are.
St. Andrew, St. Catherine.
So, Speaker, I'm thinking Kingston and St. Andrew is one of the largest population center. If we attempt to include St. Thomas, that's probably the furthest we would be able to go. I think St. Catherine is possibly too large to be a population center to try to pull into Kingston and St. Andrew, but we could look at St. Catherine as well as an option. We wouldn't be able to go further than St. Catherine.
So I would say Kingston, St. Andrew. I'd like to include St. Thomas and St. Catherine.
And possibly St. Catherine.
Right.
Yes.
JC. What do you think, Mr. Brown?
I'm trying to get a sense of what that meeting would look like. Would it be a public meeting? Would it be a what would be the population? What would be the attendance we're looking at? And how we manage it is what? I'm not opposed to it. I'm just trying to get
to know, yes.
the logistics of
how
such
we
a
manage
meeting.
it, yes. Members, how we manage it. That's important. We're setting the date and how are we going to manage it? Who is going to be there? How are we going to, what do we do?
Workshops would be a little difficult. I understand what Senator Brown is asking in terms of how would it be managed, but I believe, as Member Robinson indicated, sharing with persons the green paper, the churches, the schools, they would have an appreciation of what they are coming to discuss. All the interest groups in the space would have an idea as to what they are coming to discuss. And I believe the usual town hall setting of having still a discussion with those present and then allowing for question and answers and suggestions would be a mechanism to be used to facilitate.
Or we don't, from my mind, because it's such a large group, cut out the presentations and go right into recording what it is, the broad question, what do you expect of your MPs? And if they record everything, don't bother with our presentations, because we are here to hear what you have to say. And once it is recorded now, we can then play it back to ourselves and see what are the themes that come out. You have somebody go through and see the themes that come out of what people are saying. Because the Jamaicans will tell you what they want from their MP. They know. So when you get it, you can log into section. You find that a main theme is that we want this, a main theme, and we have it.
Ideally, Chair, for a meeting of this nature, you don't want to have a meeting where you are going to talk to the people.
No.
You want a meeting to invite comments and recommendations from the people. So you would want to have someone there who can moderate and have this type of fluid engagement, garnering the response from the people, because we would just be there to listen. We can set the stage in the opening, but more to listen to the people.
I agree. I don't want any of us as MPs to talk, because we want to hear what they want. So we look for a good moderator, somebody from the press, somebody who can, and the important thing is to have it recorded so that you can look back afterwards and pick out the themes that come out at us.
Chair, the idea wasn't to have a long talk shop, but we have to set the context. It cannot be presumed that everybody knows and understands fully what we are there about. So very briefly at the beginning, if it's a moderator, someone who just sets the context of what the role and function is, well, what we are about, trying to prepare a job description that some suggestions have already been made, put it in summary format for them, and then for them now to take over the discussion from there.
Be good, or moderators could well come from the Senate, people who are not parliamentarians and have an idea, and we can put it together that way. Or the press, as the press. We don't want to, as parliamentarians. I wouldn't like for us to do it. Let's think of the moderator, because I don't want us to cap what it is we ask. We want to hear, as you say, what comes at us, and for it to be recorded, and then for us to pull the themes from it. Probably we could ask the committee clerk, when it's finished, for them to go through and just pull the themes, the main themes that come out that can be brought to our meeting as to what, what are the themes that came out of.
Could I suggest that we ask the chamber, the council of churches, to nominate a moderator? They tend to be good at.
You think they are good?
Yes, I think that there are pastors out there who are good at moderating these things. And
yeah, well, we can spread it around. In some cases, we can use that council of church. Some cases, somebody from, all over. We can consider that and ask all of you as members to indicate to the clerk suggestions as to a moderator. And then we decide. Indicate to the committee clerk or to the clerk to the Houses of Parliament. Throw in your suggestions as
again,
to
Madam Chair, I'm not opposed to other stakeholders being asked to weigh in on who the moderator is, but I really don't think it's beyond this committee to contemplate, consider, and come to an agreement regarding who that person will be at the appropriate time, perhaps at a later date.
Right.
Concerning the matter of location for the fora, where the views of those in the Kingston and St. Andrew local will be received, I wondered about, and I'll defer to my colleagues on the committee, contemplating the factors of availability, cost, and the numbers we are expecting. I wondered whether the National Arena perhaps would be a better location as opposed to Jamaica College. I don't know the views of my colleagues on that.
No, I mean, the arena, well, one, in terms of cost, you're talking about $1 million to rent the place. I think, and we are not certain what the numbers are. I don't think you need such a big open space. JC can hold well, I'm not sure the couple thousand can hold comfortably between downstairs and upstairs, and it's comfortable. I would start with a smaller location, which is easily accessible on a main road, rather than go to the arena at this stage. And my view, I think there's going to be a need for mobilization. I don't think this is something that persons are just going to naturally come to. No, I don't think so. They will express their views in different ways, but I think they're going to have to be encouraged to come to a forum like this. So I would start with a small.
With the JC, yes. Okay. We're going to start with JC, I think. We have agreed on that, and I ask all of you as members to indicate to the clerk, to the committee clerk, Ms. Cohen, who may have suggestions as to a good moderator for the afternoon. So, members, hold on. Members, nobody has a birthday on Sunday the 24th or an anniversary, all of us here. I'm saying to you that this committee is committed to being there on the Sunday afternoon of the 24th. This committee, that's one. And our next meeting will be the 3rd of October, and I will not be here on the 3rd of October, so right now we can agree that the meeting will go on, and can we have somebody from now, I don't want, who will chair that meeting? May I have a volunteer? Right, okay, so Mrs. Holness, right, Mrs. Holness will be here on the 3rd, Tuesday the 3rd, to chair that meeting. I don't want us to fall flat. And after the Tuesday the 3rd now, members, when is our next committee meeting?
I think you would have received a number of the submissions. The committee clerks would have to do a kind of matrix.
Right.
So it might take them maybe a week or two.
Right.
So you want to look maybe mid-October, 3rd week in October?
The 17th of October.
October, okay. All right.
So we have the 17th of October for the next meeting.
Book the 31st at the same time. Just so
And
that
we hold the 31st. Yes. Right, so that nobody takes this. This is at 10 o'clock. The 17th, 10 o'clock, the 31st of October, and Mrs. Holness, at the meeting on the 3rd, depending on how the 24th went, you set now the next meeting for us for another area, having gained some feel of what took place. So after the 31st now we go to when?
All of these at 10 o'clock.
These are all 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. And then we have November 6th, Tuesday at 10. Oh, the 7th, sorry. So, yes.
Take the 7th and the 28th, Chair.
And the
I would hope
28th.
by the 28th.
Yes. 7th and the 28th. We should have, yeah, we should have finished by then.
All the submissions. But none of these drop in one just in case.
You want us to squeeze in the 23rd as well, just in case? The 23rd and the 21st and the 28th.
So November.
So after the 7th and the 21st?
Yes,
Okay.
and then the 28th.
That sounds very good, Chair.
Right. And members, much as we are committed to town hall, I'm asking you all, these meetings are so important, I'm asking us all to make an effort to come. Setting it so that we can plan ahead and do it. December is a no, you know. When you get to December.
When October? Oh, no, it's from Monday. Heroes Weekend.
When is Heroes Weekend?
Turn on, let me see. Heroes Weekend is 3rd.
When is Heroes Weekend?
1, 2, 3, but it's a Monday. This is a Monday.
Heroes Day is the 16th.
So the Tuesday meeting is good.
Yeah, good. So we have it right after. So, member, we have looked at the timeline for the deliberations. We are going to do the ads and the social media. And I think we can leave bringing in experts and so after we have garnered from the public meetings and the papers that come into us, we can take it from there as a guidance. Eh?
You want to let them know that they are being invited.
Everybody,
Specific.
yes, man.
Yeah, everybody, you know.
Yes.
But I'm just suggesting that there are some groups that you want to specifically invite their appearance.
And let me tell you something, once it goes out, as we said, news, Gleaner, Observer, social media, TV, everything, those groups that are truly interested will jump forward. I don't think we'll have a
Chair,
problem.
I don't think we should invite any specific group.
I don't
Persons
either.
who want to attend, attend. Why? Because it gives a sense that we prioritize some
That's
over
right,
others.
over others.
So for the public sessions, they're open. And then the groups now we would like to make submissions would be the groups that we would specially invite as
They can make their
the
submissions
groups to
and
make their
send it
submissions
in.
for here
Yes.
to submit to the committee. So all the groups, Member Gale indicated, are excellent groups to have put a solid submission and have it here ventilated, right? But for the public sessions, we wouldn't want to be,
No.
yes.
No.
Yeah, just allow it to be open and everybody can feel they should be a part. I know I'm going to get into trouble for one particular thought, but I'm going to just say it anyways. I decided to become a politician because I believe it is a noble job to serve the people. I actually take umbrage. In the church, I invited no one to come to my church out of politics or media to mediate and do anything for us at the church. And I take issue with us always seeming to be in a place that we behave as if we're the worst of the worst, and we continue to feed the narrative in everything we do and say and how we conduct our affairs. We must hold ourselves in high esteem and regard, and this process is actually a part of doing that, saying to the people, we are opening up ourselves to you, we want your input, and we want to be held accountable. And in my estimation, just the way we conduct even this session, the way we conduct our public meetings, should send a signal as the start of holding our office as representatives of the people of Jamaica in that high regard. We should not allow ourselves in any way to be tainted by the impression that we cannot be transparent and we are not reasonable, accountable, judicious in how we execute our function.
Thank you very much. I do agree with that. I said it this morning. I said it is a paradigm shift in governance. It is transformational. It is a bold step. And in fact, the Prime Minister has gone where several others have never dared to go. And we are there, we are out there, and I do agree that the way we operate, the way we think about each other, the way we talk about each other, and the fact that we serve. It's going to be so interesting, this whole exploring what a job description is. It's going to bring to the front exactly what it is that we face when we place ourselves in front of the public for service. It's going to open up, and you will then recognize exactly what a mammoth task and a noble task it is, and has been for those who have served before us. Member.
Madam Chairman, I think it important to remind us and the viewing public that the Constitution has entrusted to each House of Parliament the power to regulate its own conduct. And I think it is important that the people we serve understand that this is a matter that is not to be taken lightly. I do share your view that what is happening today is continuing a process that Prime Minister Holness has given priority to. And I believe at the end of the day, we will come away with a document reflective of an informed perspective. I share and associate with the views expressed by Member Holness that we have to break the narrative and not help to feed it that we are unable to regulate our own proceedings to the required standard of probity and integrity. And so I'm looking forward to the deliberations of the committee, the consultations and interactions with the wider public, because this is part of the bigger reform work of the Holness administration.
Thank you very
In concluding, Madam Chair, when I was at another place, I've had occasion to indicate to the public that committees of Parliament have descended or have gone beyond their remit, and therefore timelines have not been met and the objectives of the committee have not been fulfilled. I'm encouraged by the opening session of this Joint Select Committee, because I sense that there's a recognition that the work of this committee is very critical to the good functioning of our democratic process in terms of how parliamentarians and ministers are perceived in terms of fulfillment of their function. I'm also encouraged that there appears to be a sense of agreement that members of the committee are adequate in terms of meeting the timelines and getting the work of the people done. I think we're at an important juncture of the democratic process in Jamaica, and advancing the work of this committee in a sober and expeditious manner is critical to advancement of the process. Those are my concluding comments.
I think we have covered the date of the next meeting, and it seems that we have covered all the procedural issues, Madam Chair. Maybe we are now at item 8 on the agenda. You know, and I reserve my comment for how bold the decisions were. I want this to be a very good meeting without contention.
Thank you very much. In concluding, I just remind us that the members of the committee were named on the 20th of June in Parliament, and I think the 14th of July in the Senate. So it is timely that we act with haste. We have been given a mandate, and I think we are comfortable that we are all committed to the task ahead. I want to thank you all very much for coming, and I look forward to our next meeting. First of all, look forward to the forum on the 20th, where we will all be present, and to our next meeting, which will be chaired by Mrs. Holness on the 3rd. And I encourage us all to ask everybody to mobilize for the meeting on the 24th in whatever way we can contribute to this. Let us do it. because we will have failed if we do not hear from the people what it is they expect us to do in our jobs as parliamentarians. Thank you all very much. Meeting adjourned.
People always say government must be held accountable. But it's whose job to keep government accountable? And what that really mean? Well, you see, when ministers and public officials have to provide answers for decisions made and can face consequences for those actions and decisions, that means they're being